revealed various perspectives from important actors in the Russian political scene from the past and present. The country faces many challenges. Last year, we saw a fall in oil prices and international sanctions due to its annexation of Crimea and role in the conflict of Ukraine. Amidst economic and political isolation, there are even deeper challenges within its infrastructure. Russia's economic model has been criticized as being far too dependent on oil. Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev has said that his country faces appalling structural problems, including a weak democracy, shrinking population, and non-performing economy. The first person we have with us tonight is none other than Mikhail Khodorkovsky, the man who has been declared internationally wanted by the Russian Interpol for connection to the murder of Vladimir Putikov, the mayor of the Siberian oil company Nefteyugansk in 1998. As the former CEO of the major oil company Yukos, he has played a primary role in being the major voice of the Russian opposition. He is the key in giving us an insight into lesser-known political opinions in a nation with a reputation for its loyal legitimacy. Now I'm going to turn it over to our foreign correspondent, Amelia Davenport.
Thanks, Jesus. Tonight we would like to welcome our first special guest, Mikhail Khodorkovsky. It is a pleasure to have you here with us tonight.
Hi.
Let's start off with a topic that you have personal ties to. After the Soviet Union dissolved in 1991, the Russian Federation was forced to undertake a radical transformation of regimes. Westerners often say that Russia has failed to fully democratize, and some question whether Vladimir Putin is pushing democratization efforts forwards or backwards. How would you characterize the political culture in Russia at the moment?
Политическая культура в России полна несправедливости.
The political culture in Russia is unjust. Anyone with political motives that oppose the popular ideology runs a heavy risk of being prosecuted. I was put into prison for purely political motives, with a complete lack of due process in my trial. Amnesty International even named me a prisoner of conscience, which applies to anyone imprisoned because of their race, sexual orientation, religion, or political views. However, I'm not the only one. This is why I, the leader of the Open Russia movement, have unveiled a project that assists political prisoners with the help of Alexei Navalny, leader of the Anti-Corruption Fund.
Russia currently entertains a multi-party system with the dominant establishment party being United Russia. Do you think that it is possible for any other party to gain more support than United Russia? How difficult is it for political parties to even maintain a presence in the shadow of United Russia?
Партия «Единая Россия» — это единственная политическая партия, вернее, я бы сказал...
United Russia is Putin's whip. Putin and United Russia go hand in hand. One cannot survive without the other. I do not support them, and it is disturbing that the fact that I am even voicing my opposition on this program will bring any move I make under question from Putin in an attempt to quiet me and my supporters. Their warrant for my arrest is simply a result of this. They just pieced together a false story to back it. This environment makes it difficult for anyone who does not support United Russia or is a member of another party to be politically active. Men do not want to risk leaving their families unsupported if only to be thrown in jail by Putin's cronies. That being said, it is extremely difficult for other parties to garner support or to even be acknowledged in these difficult times.
What about the other parties represented in the State Duma, like the CPRF, Adjust Russia, and the LDPR? Can you speak a little more on the marginalization of the Liberal Democrat parties?
Я не поддерживаю никакую из этих партий. Я предпочел бы изменение всей политической системы.
I am not loyal to any of these parties. I would rather see a sweeping change throughout the entire political system. My political platform is simply pro-Europe. As for the CPRF, in my opinion, going back to our communist ways would be reversing history. A just Russia is just a scheme created by the Kremlin to act like Russia has a competitive political nature. Finally, the fact that the LDPR denounces the West is against my political beliefs.
But the Liberal and Reform parties strongly support Western economic and political values. Why not just support these parties?
Вы знаете, эти партии не имеют большой поддержки, а также...
These parties do not have a strong or unified base of support and lack a charismatic leader. While I may agree with their ideals, these parties are not popular with Russians and are often associated with the economic decline in the 90s. I do not think it is smart to advocate for names like Russia's Choice and the Union of Rightist Forces that bring about such bad feelings among Russians. That is why, again, I have released a political platform rather than a state of support for a specific political party.
What are your views on foreign policy and the role Russia plays in various international issues?
Сейчас самый главный вопрос то, что без сомнения Путин начал войну на Украине.
First of all, without question, Vladimir Putin started the war in Ukraine because he is unable to ensure economic growth in his own country. The annexation of Crimea should not have occurred. I fully believe that Ukraine will be able to become a successful independent state on its own. In regards to the United States, I believe that Putin's talks with them are artificial and are occurring for the sole purpose of distracting attention from an elite system within Russia. I tend to agree with Western ideas and am currently seeking asylum in the UK since I have been exiled from Russia.
Let's step back into the history books for a second. In 1917, the Russian Revolution occurred. It is remembered as a chaotic series of events that consisted of two specific revolutions in February and October of that year. Consequently, the country went into a civil war, which was followed by the communist state forming. What would have been your stance had you have been alive during this time?
Понимаете, конечно, прежде всего перестройка это была...
One of the causes of this revolution was a growing sense of understanding of democracy by Russian people. Unfortunately, the results were communism, but I think the anger of the people was validated and that I would have supported them in their cry for democracy. Other causes for the revolution include poor working conditions for laborers, food shortage, losses in the Russo-Japanese War, and unfair treatment of the peasants by the patricians. Unfortunately, these conditions have been a theme throughout Russian history and have been manipulated into a communist regime, and now by Vladimir Putin. Conditions for the common people are strikingly similar now to how they were back then. I recently read that the World Bank estimates that 12.7% of the Russian population currently lives in poverty. However, I do not think a revolution will occur due to the fact that in 1917, there was no political legitimacy, but today there is. I also would not support a bloody uprising or even to take down Putin. I would rather see a peaceful remodeling of our political system.
I take it then that you are not a fan of democratic centralism?
No. События 91 года привели людей в некоторое замешательство. Был хаос, и многие люди использовали эту ситуацию. Кто-то смог заработать много денег, кто-то смог адаптироваться к новой идеологии. И трудно все сделать в один день. И даже Рим строился не в один день. Например, Путин, такие люди, как Путин, они в этой непростой обстановке, им удалось убедить людей, что они являются лучшим выбором России, и без них Россия не обойдется.
About a decade after the Russian Revolution, Joseph Stalin instituted the first five-year plan. What is your opinion on this historic economic plan?
Я думаю, что это была очень плохая.
Well, as they were based on the doctrine of the Communist Party, I look back on them with a critical eye. As a capitalist, I would not have been able to benefit from these centralized economic plans. Also, Vladimir Putin and Joseph Stalin are very similar rulers from the way I see it. Putin has been known to mirror Stalin when it comes to politically motivated sentencing and trials. Therefore, I feel as though Joseph Stalin would have found some way to wrongly frame and imprison me, or even kill me.
Okay.
The nomenclatura system was essentially what the publication Foreign Affairs calls a group of managers and bureaucrats engaged in ceaseless political maneuvering among themselves while maintaining total power as a privileged class over all others. You were able to rise to power with the help of your young Communist League contacts and a small group of associates who had highly placed relatives in the Soviet nomenclatura. How come you vouch against this almost soft authoritarian rule of Vladimir Putin and for a democracy when you associated with the nomenclatura during Soviet rule?
Это все правильно, но как и любой русский, я
Like many Western politicians, I did what I had to do to rise to power to change things for the better in the future. I did not do anything illegally. I simply used my resources to gain a better foothold in the political and economic world of Russia. The present is what matters the most, and at present, I am putting all of my energy into my philanthropy, Open Russia, for the freedom of political prisoners.
Can you tell us a little bit about Perestroika and Glasnost and your ties to these movements?
Сначала я хочу, чтобы вы поняли разницу между перестройкой и гласностью.
Of course, first of all, let me differentiate between the two as they often get confused. They were both movements under Gorbachev in the 80s, but they each did different things. Perestroika was the reconstruction of the political and economic system. Contested elections were introduced so that citizens could have a slight say in government. Economically, it called for demonopolization and allowed for some semi-private businesses to function, ending the price controls. Glasnost refers to the social and political reforms that gave Russian people more freedoms. It allowed for more freedom of expression and decreased the censoring of the media. Perestroika and Glasnost were essential policies that I thought were a great step towards democracy and a freer market. In fact, it was during Perestroika and Glasnost that I was able to start several businesses that helped me gain control of the oil fields in Siberia, Yukos, in the 90s.
Historians and economists say that the Soviet Union attempted to democratize too quickly. Glasnost, Perestroika, and the sudden collapse of the communist regime was too much too soon.
Да, вы правы.
When the events of 91 took hold, the nation was in a sudden disarray. While some people were able to take advantage of the chaos, the average Russian became disillusioned, having to suddenly adapt to a completely different economic, ideological, and political system. Rome was not built in a day after all. Unfortunately, in this mess, some people were able to take advantage. Like Putin, for instance, it is because of the rapid transfer of regimes that Putin is able to prey on the common people and convince everyone that he is the best and only ruler Russia needs.
So you think a more gradual approach should have been taken? I thought you were able to profit due to the sudden twist in the economic system.
Вы знаете, в это время я поступал как все.
That is correct, but just like any Russian, I did what I could with the resources I had. I think that there should have been more structure in the aftermath and a stronger plan of attack, sure. The shock therapy was unnecessary, and without it, I would have still been able to capitalize on private investments with a more gradual approach.
So why do you think the Soviet Union collapsed?
Развитие экономической системы СССР подвело ее к краху.
The economy was completely in shambles. The Soviet Union had simply grown too large to be state-controlled anymore. Perestroika and Glasnost also backfired because as people became more enlightened, they became angered and began to protest all of the secrecy that had been imposed. The Chernobyl disaster also was covered up by the government, which sowed additional seeds of distrust. The less hostile relations with the U.S. in the past few decades also reduced the motivation of fear among the public. Finally, there was excessive military focus, which led to neglect of domestic affairs, which in turn angered the people additionally.
Do you think Vladimir Putin is abusing his power?
Absolutely. Это бывший работник КГБ, который применяет.
Absolutely. First of all, no Western democracy has a secret police like Putin's modern-day KGB. It is already bad enough that trials are not fair and that any opposition to United Russia is quickly quieted as election day approaches. The fact that he sent masked agents to seize me on my private airplane and throw me into a jail, rather than fighting me fairly in the courts, is despicable. The fact that there is a highly suspected fake opposition party, a Just Russia, in order to feign democracy, is despicable. The fact that Putin imprisons anyone who gets in his way is despicable.
What are some of the biggest social problems facing Russia today?
Я бы назвал самой большой проблемой коррупцию.
I believe that the inherent corruption has become a social issue in the country. Internationally, Russia is ranked 119th on the Corruption Perceptions Index. With the overall unstable political and economic climate, many are abusing drugs and alcohol. Drug use is increasing rapidly among the young, and alcohol poisoning is the leading cause of death. Unemployment and underemployment have reached crisis proportions. It is terribly sad because everyone believes that Vladimir Putin has their best interests at hand and will save them, yet he will not.
Presently, what is Russia's place in the global economy?
С каждым днем роль России в мировой экономике уменьшается. Особенно это стало заметно.
With the Ukraine crisis, Russia is becoming increasingly distant from Western powers and having a lesser and lesser role in the global economy. Under Putin, the economy will only further weaken, eventually provoking civil wars between rival clans within Russia.
Where does Russia's military come into play?
Понимаете, Putin руководит.
I do not like how the military is in the hands of Putin, as he can and will use them to meet his every demand and wish. Russia is considered to have the world's second most powerful military on the GFP index. This has been put on display with its bullying of Ukraine. Simply put, if the Russian military was not powerful, then Putin would not be powerful. But since it is, Putin is dangerously powerful.
Experts have said that Russia is not the powerful nation it once was. However, Russia is not afraid of asserting its foreign policy views, even at the cost of antagonizing Western powers. Any developments that threaten Russia's strategic interests are met with hostility. The 2014 Ukraine revolution sparked the biggest East-West showdown since the Cold War. What are your suggestions for Russia in moving forward?
Россия должна осознать, что она часть Европы.
Well, Russia needs to quickly realize that we are part of Europe, not an antagonizing, hostile, isolated entity. It is imperative that Putin is removed from power as soon as possible. A future without the Putin government looks like one where there is free press, expression, and elections, a better economy, and healthier foreign relations.
As we'll discover tonight, the future of Russia looks very different depending on who you talk to. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.